People come to me all the time for advice on their careers and their business, and sometimes they get these great opportunities or that seem great on paper or verbally, and they sometimes just need someone to talk it out with. You absolutely can talk to your family about it, but if your family doesn't have a wealth of knowledge or information or experience, they may only give you one perspective of things. And if it comes down to money, they're always going to tell you to take the more and take more money. But when you are offered a new opportunity, it's one of those make your next move your best move. You really have to weigh all the pros and cons, and that's whether or not you are changing jobs, starting a new business, getting a new client, or going back into the workforce, going back to school. There's a lot of things that can impact you professionally, but those impacts also show up in your personal life. So that's why it's important to weigh your pros and cons. So I had a conversation with a young lady, and she has a new opportunity at work. Another organization has offered her a position that's similar to what she does, but the pay is significantly more. It's about $20,000 more. And she was just wondering, like, oh, should I go? Should I do it? That's a big decision to have to make, because she knows where she's at. She already knows the culture, the lay of the land. She knows that there's a lot of opportunities that are coming up with people retiring, with new systems that are going to be put in place that's going to change different types of work that they're going to do. So it is going to be room for growth, just not right now. And so the other place, the title and everything is very similar work, but a new culture. Is for an organization that passed on her a couple of years ago, stating she didn't have enough experience. But as she was working where she's currently at, they noticed her work ethic and the impact that she was having, and they were like, yo, we want you. And that can happen too. Listen, when you're out there and you're playing, you know how I say practice hard. So when you play, you will play to win. You don't know who's in the building, who's watching. And they had seen her at work and was like very impressed and saying, we need her on our team. And so that's why they, reached out to her. She didn't apply on her own, but they reached out to her, and they did bring her in for an interview, and they were like, yo, we want you, and this is how much we're gonna pay you. And it was, like I said, significantly more, $20K more. And so her dilemma was, she knows that there's room for growth. Where she's at, she has more flexibility. They also have better benefits where she's at. But that $20K feels good, sounds good. And so I had, talked through it with her for her to consider certain things. Sometimes businesses will offer you a significant amount of money, but is that going to be the biggest amount they're going to give you for the next 3 to 5 years? Do they have cost of living increases every year? Do they give performance raises? Do they give bonuses? I don't want her to make that pivot if that's going to be the most she's going to make in the next 20 or next 3 to 5 years, because if she stays where she's at and continues to grow there, she'll be making that and more in the next 3 to 5 years. So those are things to consider. Also, she has a young family, and her husband, he's there too, but she has a very flexible schedule, whereas the other company is not so much. So she has to take all of that into consideration. The grass is not always greener, so you definitely have to be mindful to make your next move your best move. So there are many people that are going back into the workforce. They may have retired, and were able to retire at a early age. Listen, there's plenty of people that have been working for the same company since they were 21 years old, straight out of college, or 18 years old, straight out of high school. And they get 30, 35 years in, and they are still young, and they love what they do. But when you have that many years behind you, people almost push you out. They're looking at you like, you've been here that long, what's going on? Even though they love what they do, it's their purpose, it's their passion, they're thriving at it. But sometimes that peer pressure makes people retire retire prematurely. And I've seen that too. And then they're like, dag, when they retire, they're like, man, I'm bored. I don't have, my next move has not been determined, so I don't know what to do with myself. And a lot of times they'll go back to where they left on a part-time basis, because even though they're retired and they're getting their benefits, they can work a certain amount of hours per year part-time and be that intellectual property, that knowledge, and coming back and training up or supporting the training for the new people that are coming in. Well, I have seen that happen, and the person, and one in particular that I'm thinking about, it's such a shame because this person retired at a really young age in their mid 50s and still had so much life to live, so much to give to the industry that they were in. And they did come back part-time, and they retired maybe about 6 years ago or so. And since then, if they would have stayed where they were, they would have made probably double the money that definitely double the money that they were making when they retired. And they are still young. They just turned 60, but they are working part-time now in that organization. And it's like, man, you left a lot of money on the table. You still, apparently you still enjoy coming in. You still love what you do. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here even part-time. So definitely, you know, you have to be very strategic and understand that the grass is not always greener, and just be mindful of the choices that you make when you are pivoting. If you're entering the workforce, maybe you've been out of the workforce for many years because you were raising your family or you were a caregiver. I know there are so many caregivers out here for their elderly parents or their parents that may have illnesses that requires additional attention. And they get to a point when they want to go back into the workforce. But you got to be careful of those steps, because you don't know what the work-life balance is going to be in that environment. And you don't want to do something that's going to tarnish your brand, because you can't hang, you can't do the work, you can't, you know, work the hours that are required because life is happening at home, you know. So you definitely want to be mindful of that when you're making those next moves, of all of those things, not just the salary, not just the benefits. I remember years ago, I had this apprenticeship cohort, and one of the men in that cohort, you know, was doing well. It was about 2 months into the program. He was doing the on-the-job training process of it. And one day out the blue, he called me, and I thought, oh, you know, what's up? How you doing? Because I check on them. So when I got the call, I was like, hold on, wait a minute. And so he was like, you know, I just wanted to let you know, you know, I'm trying to, you know, be honest with you. I really love what I'm doing, but when I applied for this position, I also applied for another apprenticeship at the same time. And this one came through first, and the other one actually put me on a wait list. And I was like, oh, really? You know, like, what's going on? And he said, and the other one pays $30,000 more than this position. And it has a union, it's a national company, so I can move around to different, you know, different states. And I really want to go for that one. And I was like, heck yeah, $30,000 more. You better go for that. You know, I endorse that. And thank you for, you know, being honest and open, having integrity, and coming to me with that. And so he was like, yeah, he said, but I just wanted to let you know, I'm moved up on the wait list. Now I'm just waiting for them to call me. I'm going to work until they do. It could be 2 weeks. It could be a month, 2 months. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. And I was like, wow, I really appreciate that. If you could just do me this one solid and just work like you don't know you leaving, you know. Don't, some people, when they know they about to be out, they be like, yo, I'm out, like deuces. So I said, you know, just please don't slack, you know, work, do your very best until the end. And he was like, yeah, definitely, I got you. And so about 5 or 6 weeks later, he called me and he was like, Miss Sherry, they called and I can start in 2 weeks. And so I'm gonna put my 2 weeks notice in, and I'm letting you know, and I'm going to let my manager know, you know, on my crew and everything. And I was like, all right, wow, thank you. And I wish you all the best, you know, keep me posted how things going or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, definitely. So it was interesting because when he gave his 2 weeks notice, his whole crew didn't realize that this was going on in the back room, or in his life, because he worked like he was going to be there forever. And so they was like, wow, like he's a great employee, because we would have never known. He really did his best every day. He showed up, he was right here. So I was like, that's so impressive. So maybe after he left, and maybe it was about 2 months later, and he calls me, and I'm thinking he's just calling to check in, let me know how things are going, this, that, and the other. And so I was like, hey, what's up? How are things? Wow, it's great to hear from you. And he said, yeah, it's great to hear from you, your voice and everything. But I'm really calling Miss Sherry because this work is really hard. It's a lot harder than I expected it to be. I actually got hurt. Yeah, it was a lot of money, but they didn't even have insurance for us. At least on your side, y'all had insurance. And he said, I just didn't feel like I was being trained properly, and that's why I got hurt. And it's just not worth it to me. And the grass is not greener on the other side. And I was just wondering, is it possible, is my position still available? Is it possible for me to get back into the apprenticeship program with you? And I was like, what? I was like, of course, welcoming him back with open arms. Absolutely. And, it was just interesting that, he made that move because it was more money. And at the time, because it was a significantly more than what we were offering, I was like, yeah, go for it. But now that definitely has taught me you can't just pivot like that, because you just don't know what the situation is going to be. Just like even with sports. I remember, when my husband was a free agent, and the teams that wanted him, if they had a player in that position already, he would be like, well, what are they doing? Are they retiring? Because I know that two of us can't be on the field at the same time in that one position. So what's going on there? Or, if they didn't have a particular scheme that he knew that he did well in, he would be like, is the head coach changing? Or, like, what's going on? Like, even though it might be more money, you don't want to sabotage your career by going for the money and it not be a real good fit for you. You don't want to sabotage your career and you mess up your brand because you're late. The balance isn't there and you're not able to perform. So whenever you are looking into pivoting, deciding what it is that you're going to do or whatever, look at the big picture. Don't look at the for today. Look at it down the road, 3 to 5 years, and how it's going to possibly impact your life personally and professionally. Ask those questions about professional development. Do they encourage that? Ask those questions. So if you got a starter already, if you got somebody doing this work, what you need me for? Is the team growing? Is there something else that I don't know? Something new coming down? So really be mindful of all of that. Don't just jump for the dollar, because it's not always worth it. And in the long run, it can really do more harm than good. All right, I hope you got a nugget from that, and it's been my pleasure sharing this information with you. Again, remember, practice every day, because you just never know who's in the building. And also, when you practice and you do well in practice, when you play, you will always play to win. I am Coach Sherry.